Hello everyone, Mike Mullis here for the original Next Level Gaming. I don't normally do these one-off type videos, but it's time for my first ever response video. Alright, well, it's not that serious. Now, we have a friend of the channel who I watch a lot. His name is Drink and Games with Josh. And Josh, like me, is a retro enthusiast. He collects retro games. He, like us, like Seth and I, get a Video Games Monthly box. And he gets a couple other things too. And he goes out and does finds at flea markets and garage sales and stuff like that. And then he does videos just like we do. And his videos are great, by the way. I strongly suggest you go check out Josh's channel. I put it down in the description below. And just let him know I sent you over. And by the way, he's a fellow Marylander. So, you know, we had to stick together. So anyway, my response video comes from a video that he did earlier in this month where he was showing some of his more expensive games in his library, and he wanted to put out a challenge to other people for us to show him our most expensive games in our library. Well, I decided to go ahead and take him up on that challenge and show some of you folks who watch the channel and who might be retro enthusiasts as well, some of my most prized possessions in my catalog. So those who watch us do our Video Games Monthly videos, Seth and me, you know that I have an app called GameEye. Wow, that's the best I've ever been able to show it. But the GameEye app gives me all of my pricing, and it allows me to keep my catalog right here on my phone. So if I go to a store, or if I go to a convention and people are selling games, and maybe I want to do some trading, or I want to buy a game but I don't quite know what to negotiate with the guy behind the counter, my GameEye app will help me with that. Plus, it's always cool just to know at the drop of a hat what I've got in my library. In case somebody goes, "Hey, you guys remember a Saturn game called Valora Valley Golf?" And I go, "Oh, sure I do." And, you know, I've got it right here. So, but it's a great app. I strongly suggest you download it. It's in your app store for iOS and Android. There isn't a PC version, but I hear a PC version may be coming in the future. So, I'm going to use my app, and I'm going to show you, based upon what my app is currently telling me, as my most expensive games in my collection and my most prized pieces. I've been collecting video games, honestly, since I was in my late teens. So while I have over the course of my life sold some games that, looking back on it, had I known, you know, it's the old adage, if you knew now what you knew then, or if you knew then what you knew now, I would have held on to a lot more of my games. But you don't. I had no idea that a Saturn game called Power Slave, which was a really cool 3D shooter, or 3D first-person shooter, would be a $200 game today. I didn't know that then. If I had known that then, I'd never have gotten rid of it. But I kept a lot of games as well, for, you know, nostalgia's sake, and because, well, I still play them today. Some of these games in my collection, I still to this day put in my Saturn, put in my Dreamcast, emulate through my Sega CD emulator, even though I own the games that I'm going to show you. And they're great games. They're still to this day, some of them hold up very, very well. So let's get right to it. If there is footage of the game that I've taken before, I'm going to show that footage. If not, then, you know, I'll just have to tell you about the game, because not everything I've played and recorded, some of the games that you're going to see, I've recorded for other videos that I've done for the site, either my retro way back collections on our NLG show, or I've done in other videos like my shmup videos and things like that. So let's get right to it. I'm going to start from the top Actually, no. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So I picked games that were valued at $150 or over. I have a lot of games that sit between 100 and 150, and I figured if I did that, this video could be about a half hour. So, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to run through some games that start at $100 in my collection and go up to 150, and then I'll show you the ones that are 150 or greater. So sitting right at $100 is Sonic CD. Take that, retro bro. Ha! At $102, Batman Returns, and that's one of my Sega CD collections. For the Game Boy, believe it or not, a loose Game Boy game that we have, Wendy, Every Which Way, is worth $104. Mr. Bones, Saturn game that I truly love. And last year on the NLG show, we actually had an opportunity to interview Ed Annunziata, who made that game, and it was a fantastic interview. That's worth $108. A Stahl for the Saturn is worth $111. Brutal Above the Claw for 32X, $115. Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast, $121. Clockwork Knight 2 for the Saturn is $128. BC Racers for the Sega CD, surprisingly, is $130. Not surprisingly, Final Fight CD, which honestly for the Sega CD was the best version of Final Fight that you could get, was $136, or is $136. Road Avenger, a really cool FMV game, is $137, and that's Sega CD. Typing of the Dead for the Dreamcast, and yes, I do have the keyboard. Yes, I do play it once in a while, for $138. Shinobi Legions, a Shinobi game for the Saturn, which interestingly enough was not made by Sega. It was made by Vic Tokai, and that's worth $148. And that brings me to my $150 games and above. So I'm going to start from the bottom, and I'm going to work my way up. And I'm going to bring my collection over here. Sorry for the noise. So here we go. Drinking Games with Josh. This is for you. These are my most prized possessions in my video game catalog. Starting at the bottom, at $154, is Earthworm Gym 2 for the Sega Saturn. Now, Earthworm Gym 2, arguably for me, was better than Earthworm Gym 1. And I'm not disparaging Earthworm Gym 1. Earthworm Gym was a great game. Earthworm Gym 2 just was built for the Sega Saturn, and it just was awesome. Also, of course, my friend Tommy Tallarico did the soundtrack, and so this is very special to me for that reason as well. So, Earthworm Gym 2, $154. Next up in my collection, my first of 2 Dreamcast games, which is surprising considering that the Dreamcast is not around anymore, and it's getting to be not quite as easy to get as you might think. The games are becoming more and more rare, so I'm going to assume that some of the other game prices are going to start creeping up soon. Skies of Arcadia. It's an instant classic. And even if you don't have a Dreamcast, you can get this for other systems as an HD remake. I highly, highly suggest that you play this game. This is one of the premier RPGs that have come out in its era, honestly. This is it's a game made by Sega, and just unbelievable. So, this is actually worth $156. Another classic. Panzer Dragoon 2. Panzer Dragoon 2 for the Sega Saturn. Again, a better game than its original, but the original game was such a classic. If you are a fan of this game, you know that at least currently on the Switch, and if it's not out already, it will be coming out for the Xbox and PlayStation consoles. An HD remake of the original Panzer Dragoon is coming. And maybe just maybe, we'll get a remake of the sequel. Now, before anybody asks, I don't have Panzer Dragoon Saga. That is like the crown jewel of the Panzer Dragoon series and worth a good $1,200. And I never had it. I actually never had the game, so it wasn't one that I had and lost. And I don't know that I would get it today. You know, one of the things about my collection is I do play these games, and I don't just, I don't just let them sit on the shelf. So, it would be tough for me to buy a game just to let it sit there. Like Power Slave, that $200 game I talked about earlier. If I come across a copy of Power Slave and I can figure out how to buy it, I'm gonna buy it. But I'm gonna buy it because I'm gonna play it. And I have original Saturn hardware, so I'm gonna play it and enjoy it. Panzer Dragoon Saga is just not one that I think I'm gonna play, so no reason for me to spend that much money on it. It's like buying a copy of Snatcher for Sega CD for $700. Anyway, I digress. Sonic R. Now, Sonic R is an acquired taste. It's a racing game. It's one of the first Sonic racing games out there, and it was built for the Saturn, of course, and it's made by Sega. I had a tough time with this game, and I don't know if it's maybe because the way that the Saturn ran 3D was a little bit different than the way PlayStation did. PlayStation was built as a 3D console. Honestly, Saturn could do 3D, but its power was in 2D games. So this had a very, very rough frame rate, and the controls were tough, even though, and I think this is probably one of the reasons that the game is up there in price, is it uses the 3D control pad, which came with Knights. And it's a Sega, I mean, it's a Sonic game. So Sonic games typically do hold their value, but I do play it from time to time, and I try to make it through. It is, by the way, also 2-player split screen, which also is kind of neat. So Sonic R goes for $168. By the way, there's a theme going here. I have a lot of Saturn games in this collection. The reason is, most Saturn games did not sell many copies, so they are increasingly rare. If you're out trying to collect Saturn games, you're going to start finding that they're becoming not just more difficult to find, but when you do start finding them, they are jumping up in price, seriously jumping up in price. One game that is not on my list here, and it's only because I couldn't find the current price of it, and I should have grabbed it off the shelf. I have an import Saturn copy of Resident Silvergun. I've seen that game go for $200 at a store. I don't know if that's overpriced or not. I do know Resident Silvergun's an amazing game, but I couldn't find a price on any of the pricing guides that I use, and certainly not on GameEye. So that's why it's not here. All right, moving along. My next game, Sega CD, Robo-Alest. And you'll find this in my shmup video. So if you have not seen yet my guide to shmups, my favorite shmups, Robo-Alest is in that video. And I have to tell you, if you have a Sega CD, or if you emulate Sega CD and you get a chance to buy this game, this is by far in that time period. And actually, you know what? I'm going to even say, even today, this game holds up as one of the best shoot 'em ups that you can play on the market. It's got an amazing story. It has some very unique gameplay, and it's got a kicking soundtrack. I mean, just a soundtrack that I can just listen to. So my copy of Robo-Alest goes for $180. And again, it's Tenjin, and that's probably why. Tenjin is, of course, no longer around, but if you get a chance to buy a copy of this, if you run across this, there is no other game that I can think of that is truly worth $180. Robolist is worth $180. All right, next up, another game that is near and dear to my heart, not just because I grew up with the movie series, not because but the soundtrack. And again, another Tommy Tallarico game, The Terminator for Sega CD. Now, Tommy has said that this is the first game that has introduced guitar and rock into game format, and he's not incorrect in the CD format. Of course, you hear guitars and rock guitars in Genesis games and Super Nintendo games, but this was the first soundtrack in which you could really do true, distorted guitar. So this game is different than the cartridge editions on the Super Nintendo and Genesis. It is I don't know how to explain it other than it's a platform game. It's an action platformer. But it's got an incredible soundtrack. And in fact, Tommy pulls one of his songs that he used to do with his old band back in the 80s into this game. That's how cool that is. And just an outstanding game by Virgin Interactive. That game, my Terminator CD, is worth, and I had to turn my phone back on, $189. And look, could it be worth $189? Perhaps. Because I have it, I bought it for, I guess it was like $40 or $50 when it first came out. But it's a game that still holds up today, and I still play it. And that's the key. Once again, I still play most of these games. Okay, next up on the list is one of my two 32X games. Now, believe it or not all 32X games sucked. Many did, not gonna lie, but many did not. Knuckles Chaotix did not. Now, Knuckles Chaotix was one of the games that came in a clamshell case, which did not happen at the beginning. So it came in a case that was a little bit stronger than a Genesis case, but pretty much looked like this. It actually also had a black and white manual. Well, for whatever reason, this did not have a color manual. Knuckles Chaotix was one of the good games on the 32X. We were all expecting a mainline Sonic game for the 32X. A mainline Sonic game for 32X would probably have given the add-on for the Genesis the jolt that it needed to power its way through until the Saturn really established itself, and would really have given Sega an alternative for gamers who didn't want to spend the $400 on a Saturn. But they didn't. So they came up with Knuckles. This had some interesting gameplay too. Knuckles was connected to another character. So either Vector the Crocodile, Mighty the Armadillo, SPO the Chameleon, and Charmy Bee. And you would actually use your buddy to slingshot you all over the place. You guys each held on to a ring. That ring was like connected to an elastic invisible band, and you could like slingshot yourself all over the place. And it let you get up to high places, over across long jumps, things like that. It had some really unique gameplay. Graphically, it looked like a Genesis game. There wasn't anything too crazy about it from a technical standpoint, but it was a lot of fun. And it was a Sega game. And Knuckles Chaotix in my collection is currently worth $200. So we've hit the $200 mark. Now things get fun. Next up on my list, another Sonic game, Sonic Jam for the Saturn. This game is hard to find. It is very hard to find. This was pretty much just Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles in a Saturn game. So it was emulated up to the Saturn. And then there was a 3D museum that you could go through. That was actually pretty cool. The museum was actually neat. It was you were running through a three-dimensional town pretty much. And you could see all kinds of cool things, listen to music tracks and stuff like that. So nothing really special about the game, just Sonic Just Sonic games, old Sonic games. This one was worth $226 currently. All right, next up on my list is another Dreamcast game, and this one surprised me. Ill Bleed. Now, if you were into horror games, Ill Bleed was a good game for you. Ill Bleed, it's tough to actually describe, but basically you have to rely on your eyes and ears. You know, it's kind of like almost like Alien Isolation, and it was just very unique. Ill Bleed was made by AIA and Crazy Games, so it wasn't even, you know, made. It's not even a Sega game. It's not a mainline third-party game. But man, this will scare the hell out of you too. This game is worth $300. Yes, $300. Next on my list, and this one is probably from it's not my most expensive, but it is my most prized possession from a sentimental standpoint. Earthworm Gym Special Edition. Signed by Tommy Tallarico. And he signed it on the NLG show last year live. It was so cool. It was a neat moment for me. Earthworm Gym Special Edition, of course, is the CD version of the original cartridge game for the Genesis and Super Nintendo. It basically it added new animations, so it wasn't just a straight up port. They added some new things to it. Of course, they upgraded the soundtrack to CD quality. It gave you some brand new endings, 2 new worlds, and a new introduction. New endings into the worlds, and a new weapon. So not just a port, but a slight upgrade, better audio, and of course signed by Tommy Tallarico himself on the cover of the manual. I don't think that obviously the signature is not going to add anything to the value. It does to me. Earthworm Gym Special Edition is worth $390. The last 3 games of my collection are all above $500, and games that I will probably never get rid of. Something will really have to come along that I absolutely have to have, that I can't live without, that, you know, maybe it's time to get rid of one of my older games to get it. I don't see that happening, but you never know. But I'm going to start with the least of the list, and that is Burning Rangers for the Sega Saturn. Burning Rangers, the definition of unique. You were a futuristic firefighter, and you had to put out fires within these futuristic buildings using kind of fire suppressing guns. And there were all kinds of other things trying to get in your way, and you basically had to fight your way through an inferno building that was also gaining strength, and you had to keep it from burning to the ground. It's an amazing game that it's hard to describe how good this game is until you actually play it. It used the 3D control pad. It wasn't even like it had a great soundtrack or anything like that. It was just, what a crazy game to play. Made, of course, by Sonic Team. So it was made by Yuji Naka, who made Sonic and Knights. And just, this is an example of what happens when you have a development studio in-house that can harness the power of your hardware. Remember how earlier I said the Saturn was not really a 3D graphical machine from a standpoint of its competition because of its architecture, and that's for a whole other video. But from an architecture standpoint, it was difficult to do 3D, and you had to take both CPUs and VDUs in the system, and you had to work them right in order to get what you needed. Well, Sonic Team figured that out, and they made games like Burning Rangers, and this game is amazing. So Burning Rangers is $575. Also sitting at $575, a Capcom classic, Mega Man 8 Anniversary Collector's Edition. Now, I showed this video game off in a video where I had just purchased a new wireless controller for the Saturn, and this was one of the games that I used to show it off. So check that footage out. You can check that video out. It's on the channel as well. It's under, I believe it's the 8-bit video, 8-bit controller. No, not 8-bit. It was, I forgot the name of the controller already, but look it up. It's my Saturn wireless controller review. I wasn't crazy into Mega Man. I mean, it wasn't a game that I played religiously, but it's fun. Mega Man, of course, is a classic. Mega Man is a very well-known character, and this is a very hard-to-find game. So if you have a copy of Mega Man 8 Anniversary Collector's Edition, you've got yourself a nearly $600 game. Hold on to this. All right. So we've come to, I'm going to move this stack of games over here. We've come to my most expensive game, my absolute crown jewel of my collection. And I'm going to say before I show it to you, from a gameplay standpoint, from a quality of game standpoint, I have absolutely no idea why this game is as expensive as it is. Well, I'll just show it to you. Clocking in at, oh, my phone turned off again. Clocking in at $1,404. Spider-Man Web of Fire, the Amazing Spider-Man Web of Fire for the 32X. I don't know. This has always been an expensive game. It could simply be the rarity and the fact that it is a Spider-Man game made by Sega. So Sega at one point had the license to make this game. I'm going to open it. The box is in absolute pristine condition. This game has been rarely played. I have probably played this game twice. Because the truth of the matter is, it's not a good game. But, and I'm not going to pull the manual out, but the manual's inside. And again, a black and white manual. I never understood that for the 32X games. But the game and the box are in as pristine condition as I could keep it. And this is my most expensive game. So Josh, you wanted to know what my top games were? These are it. But this is the big one. And I don't know why, but it is. So that is my collection. Again, I have many more that are, like I said, that sat between $150 and below. And I talked about those before. I mean, there are some others that I have that are even, most games today cost you $60, $70. So if I was to, if we were to talk about inflation, I've got Duke Nukem 3D for the Saturn, which is $93. I've got Afterburner 32X, which is $82. I got Jet Grind Radio for the Game Boy Advance is worth $71 loose. My Amazing Spider-Man versus Kingpin for the Sega CD, which was a good Spider-Man game, is $69. Don't ask me why the game that is not good is $1,400. The game that is good is $69. I've got, since I showed you Panzer Dragoon 2, Panzer Dragoon 1 is worth $80. Galactic Attack is worth $80. So I've got a few other games that are worth, a few dollars, something that not crazy. But these right here, these are my top games in my collection, and games that I'm just never going to get rid of. I'm going to enjoy them from a gameplay standpoint, most of them. And it's wild. It's wild what some of these are worth. So Josh, that's for you, my friend. And for those of you who are watching this video who are retro enthusiasts yourself, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pass this along to you. In the comments below, I want you to tell me your most expensive games in your collection. Even better, if you make videos, I want to see your most expensive collection. Calling you all out. Aha. And I'll watch your videos and we'll compare. So, thank you, everybody. I know this was a 30-minute video, but I hope you enjoyed my collection and seeing what it is that I've collected over the course of a long time. And as always, if you like the content you see here, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Share this out with other people. Let's get this community of retro gamers going. And by the way, don't forget about our friends of NLG. We have a very easy, very one-tier, $2 subscription once a month that gets you access to cool emojis while you're live chatting with us, while you're watching videos. You get to see videos like this a few days earlier than everybody else, and you get your name down in the description like you see below and at the end of our live streams and our NLG show. All right, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate you hanging out with me. And, man, pick up a controller, play some games, have some fun, collect some retro. Play on, gamers.